Eighth entry about my house. February 1989. Things have changed in the house again, and not for the better. After the new year, I've noticed my dad staying awake longer, late into the night. He had always been a light sleeper, and usually got home from work and power napped till my mum got home. But he always went to bed between 10 and 10:30, and woke up for work at 3:30. But now I'm listening to him, and it's just after midnight. The weird thing is, I've seen him standing in the middle of the dining room, staring into my room. I've also seen him in the middle of the hallway and look into the kitchen. One night, he was in the middle of my room, looking at me. I tried to talk with him, but he just wouldn't respond. Just shaking his head, slowly no. He snapped out of it later and just went to bed. I've tried talking to him about it, and he said he doesn't remember. March 1989. Dad's still doing that standing in the room. I'm getting worried. Mum doesn't remember him getting up, so I'm thinking he's not going to bed. Sunday night I found him in the kitchen. He had something in his hand. I could tell from the light from the window it was metal. I backed off to my room. I heard him drop something into the sink before going to bed. In the morning, I discovered it was a kitchen knife. I made sure to move the knife block off the counter and onto one of the other cabinets after that. Late March 1989. Tonight at about 7, Dad fell asleep on the couch and was having a bad dream. He kept muttering that they are coming, they are coming, they are here. He started tossing and turning. I tried to wake him up. As I did, his hand shot out and he grabbed me by the throat. His hand felt like ice. Pounding on his forearm was like punching concrete. His other hand was right in my face, index finger curled as if holding something. His finger flexed and he snapped out of it, pulled me into a hug and apologised. Dad never showed open affection and never apologised. I asked him what's going on and he said he would tell me one day, but not today. Mum will be home soon. Tonight is her late night. I moved the knife block into the pan cabinet again. April 1989. My dad just woke up from a nap, sweating and having trouble breathing. He was complaining about something inside him and that it hurt and that he needs help. Mum took him to the emergency room. The house is eerily quiet, literally and figuratively. Hours pass when my mother calls. She's crying. She tells me my father had a heart attack. She's staying with him. My grandfather's coming to take me to see him. We arrived at the hospital and rushed to my father's room. A priest was leaving the room, obviously saying a blessing, and seeing us, he started to say words that are obviously meant to comfort, but I just wanted to reach my dad. Dad was in a room, awake, but in some pain and discomfort. Tubes and wires everywhere. He was going to be headed to surgery for a procedure to clear the blockage. There was some danger involved, but it was less risky than doing nothing at all. They wheeled him from the room, Mom's a wreck, and we all waited together. The surgeon informed us that the procedure was successful, that they still need to evaluate the damage to his heart, but at least he's out of immediate danger for now. Dad spent 8 days in the hospital, a couple weeks more on home rest. It appears our carefree days of large extra cheese, onion and pepperoni will be at an end. No more standing in the room. He goes to bed around 9:30 now. Mom's going to church again. I'm just glad to have my dad, even if it cost us the savings for moving out of our own house. It's still quiet, but I can help but think, was the house doing this to keep us here? I hate this house. Ninth entry about my house. June 1989. I really don't know what's going on with the house. Dad's recovered well. We go fly fishing on the weekends with one or both of my grandfathers. Mum goes out with friends or visit my grandmothers. Basically, we try to be at home as little as possible. Mum said something tried to push her down the stairs after she got to the top. She caught the handrail and didn't fall, but had a gnarly bruise on her shoulder. This kind of freaked her out, as seeing how it hasn't been so long since I was a human wrecking ball. We, Dad, Uncle and paternal grandfather, have been working in the attic and have included me. We're building it into an attic Irish pub. Something is not happy about the pub. We have to use the back stairs to get to the attic. Every time we carry bags up, they split. Plastic tote handles snap, and the cold radiating from the basement door is so strong, you can sometimes see your breath. My uncle and grandfather are great woodworkers, and the pub is coming along nicely. My father has been teaching me billiards, 8-ball and 9-ball, and we're learning snooker together, despite not having a 12-foot snooker table. My grandfather brought over a handmade plaque that reads Sullivan's Pub. It has Celtic knots around the border and a Gaelic phrase. My grandfather explains to everyone in his thick brogue, "Listen here, lads, Pa got some old magic from home. This here means Ireland protect those that cross this threshold." He hung the plaque on the door. The attic was where we would go to watch sports, shoot pool, and became a place where the clans came together. It was finished July 4th, 1989. July 1989. We're starting to hear animal noises. All kinds of animals. Then there are scratches, deep scratches being left in the door and walls near the attic door. The scratches are always in groups of 3s. The wall has been pounded on at night. My closet is once again creaking open despite the hook and eye lock on it. Now I'm also seeing something walk past my door in the early morning hours, and it's huge. It blocks out the streetlights from the living room window. There's also a smell to it again. It's like wet moss and old copper pennies. There are scratches on the inside of my closet door and walls. Also, I'm seeing owls outside my window. These could be the old barn owl, but it's never sat looking into my window all night. My friends don't come over anymore. They say even just standing on the porch makes them feel unsafe. One even went so far as to say it felt like something bad was going to happen. Tenth entry about my house. August 1989. Saturday morning. Hot. Humid. My mum left for a trip with her sisters. She's headed north where it's a lot cooler. Lucky. So it's just Dad and I for the weekend. We have a day of fly fishing, playing pool, and watching old movies together, and generally trying to avoid the sun. Fishing was good. We caught a ton of sunfish. Eventually, it just got too hot to be out in the sun, so we packed it in and headed off for home. Afternoon. By this time, we had to be pushing 100 degrees. It's so goddamn hot out. My uncle has installed an old AC window unit for the pub. It's good enough to take the humidity and some of the heat out of the open room. Dad planned ahead and got a case of Yacht Club soda. For me and naturally my uncle some Irish ale. We listened to Gaelic tunes and played pool. Now the attic pub has become an oasis in a sea of bizarre events. Nothing happens in the attic. Outside the attic is another story. Entering the attic, the door will bang as if something wants to get in. The finish on the door will be scratched. The walls will pound. Around the door it will start to smell, at first like wet moss and body pennies. Then it got really bad, like rotting food and body odour. After shooting pool and hanging with my uncle, we head down to the floor. On entering, we hear this high-pitched beeping. We find that it's my father's weather alert receiver. He turned the volume up. NWS, severe thunderstorm watch issued. Tornado watch issued for this afternoon and into the early morning hours. This is a new one for me. We don't get tornado watches issued often, once every couple of years or if there's a hurricane. We let my uncle know to stay tuned to the TV and radio. The storm. Nightfall. Dad and I had spent the better part of the evening watching old movies. We'd see flashes of lightning off in the distance outside the living room. It was almost like a strobe light. Dad flipped the TV over to a local station, just in time to catch them interrupting the programme, to let us know we are now under a severe thunderstorm warning, vivid lightning, hail, and the possibility of a tornado. Now we both realise how this could go bad. If a tornado did form, we'd have to head into the basement, at night, during a storm, knowing what it was like down there. Now we could hear the thunder rolling, and the flashes of lightning were brighter. We turned the living room AC off and opened the window a bit. My father believed that the open windows helped equalize some of the air pressure in the event of a tornado. He said he learned that in the army. What it did do was let the outside air in, and you could smell the ozone from the change in the air. Sure enough, the next flash strobed the house white, like blinking your eyes rapidly. Count, make 5 Mississippi, and boom, thunder. Next lightning strobe lit the house up again. Up green, and I happened to glance towards my room. I saw that my closet door was wide open. My father asked me if I saw green when the lightning flashed. Before I could say anything to my dad, the room lit up purple. Still looking into my room, the door was shut. Another purple flash, and 4 Mississippis, boom. More lightning, green and purple, and a huge boom. I saw my closet door fly open. The doorknob had been embedded in the drywall. Green lightning flashed, count 2 Mississippi. The entity. I'm writing this the following morning, in the safety of daylight. I never want to go through what happened last night again. I'm hoping my memory is accurate. I'm sure this will haunt my dreams for years. I remember the sudden absence of electronic sound as the power cut out. The crack of thunder indicative of a ground strike. Black, punctuated by flashes of green and purple, constantly rolling thunder. Dad asks me to get the extra candles and flashlight from the stash in the kitchen, while he gets my mum's candles from their hope chest. I remember leaving the living room and going into the hallway, close to my parents' room. The lightning is flashing and the thunder is so loud. They're both nearly constant. The heart of the storm must have been just over us. The winds picked up and started howling like a pack of wolves. I could see into the kitchen. The door to the back stairs was wide open. It was locked. I know it was locked because I locked it. Then something stepped out of the bathroom. Not funny, Dad. What was in front of me was as big as my dad. As the lightning flashed, I saw it move to its full height. The hallway was at least 8 feet high and 4 feet wide, and this thing took up most of it as I couldn't see past into the kitchen. This entity was bigger and wider than my father, and suddenly a hand was on my shoulder pulling me back. "That's not me, boy." Words I hoped to forget from my father. I cannot look away as my father tries to pull me back. The entity is black. Even in the lightning, it's as black as can be. It had arms long and thick, ending in hands that it touched both side walls of the hallway. These hands appeared to be what I can only describe as hawk-like talons. It had a massive head, and the lightning would reflect back from 3 points, one higher and centered, the other 2 about where you expect eyes. It tilted its head like a dog hearing a high-pitched sound, and then started to move its head side to side till it was moving like a blur, and only the colour of the lightning flashes reflected. It started to move at us. My father pulled me back hard and we were just about at the end of the hallway. Shit! A peal of thunder mixed with every kind of animal cry you could think of tore down the hallway. The entity gouged the wall near the pantry door. When it howled, the area under its eyes got even darker. My father flung me into the living room, stepped inside and closed the door behind him. We lit my mother's candles in the living room. The light cast shadows on the walls. These shadows moved differently than the flickering of the flames, like they scurried under the door and away from the light. The lightning flashed, the thunder boomed, the wind howled. The things in the hallway slammed the closed door. My father moved to shut the door between the living room and the dining room. The living room was closed off. Dad opened the window. We would jump if we had to. Each door pounded. Dining room, then hallway, and the shadows would creep under the door, only to shrink when the candlelight touched the door. My dad took down an antique wood-framed polished silver mirror from the wall and put it behind the candles, reflecting the candlelight on the doors. The animal sound continued and got louder. Something walked up and down the hallway. A thunderous crash from outside as a huge part of oak tree came down. Lightning flashed, still that odd green and purple colour. The storm raged for a while longer. It felt like hours, but we didn't have power, so no idea what the time was. We waited for the thing to burst into the room, but it never did. The candles burned all night. The storm passed. The smell of wet grass and broken wood replaced the ozone smell. All became quiet in the house, except for the dripping of water. 11th entry about my house. August 1989, after the storm. As I write this, I'm honestly thankful for making it through the storm in the night. First off, Mum is okay. No storms up her way. She'll be home later after learning about the storm damage. As to the storm damage, the winds brought down a good part of the old oak tree in the backyard. It hit the AC window unit in the attic and tore the windows and frame out. We salvaged what we could from the attic, notably my grandfather's plaque, but a lot of the woodworking that was done was lost to rain, wind and hail. On our floor, the ceilings are damaged from the rain that got into the attic when the AEU unit tested gravity and lost. They'll need to be replaced. My room, the closet was opened so forcefully that the hinges are partially out of the frame, and the doorknob is indeed embedded into the drywall. I can't be positive, but I think I hear a faint whisper from the permanently open closet. Come. I tried using my mother's boombox to record on a cassette, but I think it's too soft. The hallway was slashed down the drywall. 3 furrows dug about 3/4 of the way through. Whatever it did, well, I know what it did, was sharp and likely could have palmed my entire head with no difficulty. The living room door and frame was badly damaged. The hallway runner got sucked down the hallway and ended up in the sunroom. From the sunroom, we could see damage to other houses. There was a swing set in our backyard. We don't own a swing set. The garden was crushed. Afternoon. My uncle came upstairs, and I swear he looked older than he did last afternoon. After making sure everyone was okay, my uncle looked to the hallway walls. It was here, wasn't it? My uncle asked us, and we could only nod our heads. Come on, lads. He motioned us to follow him, and we did. Down the back stairs to the first floor. Oddly, the stairs were wet from the water that came from the attic. The door to his living area was pushed in, wood splinters everywhere. The basement door was crushed outward. The door to the backyard was wide open. Another large branch from the oak tree came down apparently. A neighbour's cat was sitting in the yard sunning herself. I'd always given her some food or water when I saw her, so she came to me to let me know that she was hungry. When she got near the basement door, there was an odd animal sound from the dark basement that was followed by the same breathy whisper from my closet. Come down. This time, I'm positive I could hear a whispered voice. The cat must have heard it too, because it crouched down, side to the door, back arched, and she hissed and spit before running off. The hairs on our arms are standing on our end as we continue to hear the whisper of "Come see" from the dark open basement. I heard it, I know I did, and with their eyes moving back and forth, I could tell that my dad and uncle heard it too. My uncle regained himself and explained that something, he paused, hearing a whisper of the word me. Something appeared to him and my aunt in their kitchen. My aunt thought it was an animal, enraged by the storm. We heard more animal noises from the basement. A growl was my guess. My uncle continued as he mentioned how my aunt bolted for their living room. My uncle told us how the entity moved from their kitchen to the stairwell, and he heard what sounded like hooves, bone, going up the stairs. My uncle came upstairs to see what damage would be covered by insurance and what damage would not, before heading out to get lumber and plaster. Evening. We boarded up my closet door, and we helped my uncle board up the attic window. It felt violated in the attic, like all the joy and hard work was lost. To make matters worse, the whispering could be heard as we put the last screw into the plywood. See you. Later that evening when my mother returned, Dad and I agreed we don't want to tell Mom about the entity. Dad talked with my mother and decided to pick up extra shifts one weekend, and Mom would start working on Saturdays in a new pilot program to have banks open on the weekend instead of till 9 p.m. on Fridays. Dad was determined to have us move out by next year. In the meantime, I'll stay with my grandparents over the weekends. They need help around their house and we want to spend the least amount of time in our home. We went to sleep in the early hours of the morning, or at least I tried to. I kept hearing the squeak of a wood screw slowly turning. I was startled awake by the sound of a wood screw falling from a height and hitting the hardwood strip just before my bedroom carpet. Twelfth and final entry about my house. April 1990. It's the 90s. Aside from the annoying whispers to enter the closet or the basement, the loud thumps and sets of 3 thuds, things have been going well. But anytime I don't see that thing, things are going well. First off, I've been accepted into a state-run vocational high school. I'm also trying something new. Well, new to me. I'm trying to come out of my shell more. I'm hoping that a more positive mindset might help me keep the thing away. So yes, things are going well. In fact, over the past several months, after a slimmed-down holiday season and a bit of luck, we might be moving. The prospect of moving was slow going at first, but my parents and I stayed positive, and then it happened. My parents got lucky and hit the lottery. Not the jackpot, but enough that after taxes they now have enough money to do a down payment and reduce the amount of money needed to be borrowed. This nightmare could finally be coming to an end. The light at the end of the tunnel. There are 3 solid knocks on my new one since the storm closet door. This seems to happen more and more to remind me not to get too happy. So I gave the door the finger. I'm not letting this place take this joy from me. June 1990. My parents are assholes. Well, only in the sense that they pranked me good. It's the last day of school and I had just gotten home. All my stuff was gone. All my parents' stuff was gone. I went to the phone to call them at work. No dial tone. I went to the living room, on the TV. I tried to turn on the lights. No power. The thought that someone broke in again was quickly put aside when I heard laughing from the sunroom. My parents just popped up from the sunroom and honestly scared the hell out of me and told me to get my stuff and that we're going for a ride. We head down the stairs and Mom and Dad head outside. As I reach the front door, I hear the hallway door behind and above me open and then slam closed. And what to me sounds like heels moving quickly on the stairs. I exit and close and lock the front door. We drove to another town and pulled up in front of a blue-slided raised ranch off a back road. We went inside and it felt like what home should feel like. I spotted my grandfather's plaque over the door and that's when I knew this was our home. I found my bed. There was an AC unit in the wall, but under my room's window, holy crap, I'm not going to swelter this summer. This town is closer to the vocational school I'd just accepted into, and the yard was definitely big enough for a dog. My father tells me that we'll no longer be sleeping in our old place. Years of stress just washed away. First night in our new home. Mom is sound asleep. Dad and I are on the back deck, going over how tomorrow we get the rest of the furniture. We need to be extra careful not to take anything from the old place that we found in it when we moved in. Sometimes I think Dad forgets I was 3 when we moved in. Early the next morning. I awoke early with that initial panic of where I was filling me. Remembering the new house, I got up and walked around. I went past my parents' room, past the bathroom, into the kitchen and dining room, into the large common room. Home. I went downstairs into the basement. I was actually in a basement in the middle of the night. Turned on the light and noticed my father had moved all his tools and fishing stuff. I realised that they must have been doing this all week long as I was finishing school. We had until the end of the month to move our belongings, and we did with my uncle's help. He would meet us at the old place and help us move the larger items like tables and chairs. We left some of our older furniture to keep the place usable for my uncle. There was talk about bringing his adult kids to fill the apartment as they were getting on in years. My uncle would crack jokes like, "Anything in the basement or closet you want to take?" A good laugh was had, but a nervous laugh. The closet door knocked loudly 3 times. It had to have the final say on our last day. And with that, we finished up and left, giving the keys to my uncle. Night. Home. Both my father and I had trouble sleeping, as we were concerned that my uncle, being so glib, might have caused problems and provoked the entity. We both found ourselves looking out over the backyard. Muggy July night, some fog covering the grass. We were both watching something large move around the edge of the property, carefully. It never crossed the property line. Thinking it was a large animal. "Go, you don't belong here. You have no power here." I found myself muttering over and over again. My father pointed out that it looked like a bull pointed out horns, and then it was gone. July 1990. Nothing, just peace and calm. I got the lawnmower out for the basement today. Cut the grass, cleaned it, put it away, no issue. We got an Australian Shepherd puppy. She's running around on her dog run and digging a hole by the tree to nap in. I think this will likely be my goodbye entry. I think it's finally over. Yes, it's finally over. Peaceful dreams. August 1990. I'd hoped to never write in this journal again, but 1 year to the day that we saw the entity, here I am. No, it's not in our new home. As I've kept this up for so long, and he meant so much to me, it's only fitting to enter this here. We received a call from my grandfather. My aunt from our old place had gone away on a trip, and when she returned, she couldn't find my uncle. She saw the basement door was open and saw his body crumpled on the stairs. She called the police and rescue, but my uncle had a massive heart attack, and this triggered a fall. The fall created any number of life-threatening injuries. They pronounced at the scene, "My uncle has fallen. He's gone." My father and I feel horrible. We got away, but the devil was paid his due. Epilogue Part 1. Conversation with my father. August 2010. First day of hospice care, I'm visiting my father. The doctors have said without any more treatment, he has 3 months. Stage 4 cancer, riddled throughout his body. My father made the hard choices, so we didn't have to. He's refusing treatment and signed a DNR because the tumours are in all major organs and inoperable. This larger-than-life man in my younger years who stood 6 foot tall and pushed 375 pounds for most of my childhood was now gaunt and almost 110 pounds. When I was a kid, he could easily hoist me in the air with one arm. Now, I was able to lift him with one arm. I bring my daughter over to visit as often as I can. She knows Grandpa is sick. They watch Thomas the Tank Engine together. My father watches it even without her to keep up to the plot twists. One afternoon, my daughter went down for a nap after playing with Grandpa and watching Thomas. It was then my father decided to show me a Ghost Hunter series he started watching on TiVo. We watch a couple of episodes, and then he decides it's time to talk. Our conversation went like this. Dad: "Not like our old apartment, huh?" Me: No, nothing like that." "Too bad these were not around then. Beano, dude run, that would have scared the pimples off their ass. We just had those two from Connecticut, Ed and Rose." "You mean Ed and Lorraine Warren?" "Those two, yeah. They did assemblies when I was in school. Only ones I wouldn't ditch on." "So you know it was an old funeral parlour, right?" "What was? Our old apartment?" "Oh yeah. The basement was the embalming room. Uncle's floor was for viewings, and our floor was the funeral director's living space. That closet of yours was the lift to get the bodies up and down. You never worked that one out?" "No." "Kind of explains a lot." "Oh yeah. Creepy shit started happening weeks after we moved in. Minor stuff, windows opening, door banging, but when you got older, you started talking to an old man who wasn't there." "Dad, what the Go through the picture albums you got from Mom. Think there were a few we took of you with a white mist in the background or around you." "I thought that was cigarette smoke." "Nope. We were told too poor to move. My parents couldn't take us, and we'll be your mom's mother. Well, for me, I'd rather naked wrestle a horny porcupine and swim in a pool of Purell than live with that woman." "Thanks for the visual, Dad." "You're welcome, boy. See, the apartment was all we had. You used to talk about the adventure the old man said you have on the treasure you would find in the cave." "Okay, I don't recall that." "You were just a little shit then. Now you're a big shit. Shut up and listen. The cave was your name for that area under the stairwell in the basement. You know the one." "Wait, I hated that room." "Yeah, That's because that was the first time you ever saw the shadow. That was Uncle Jay's word for it. There, Han. It's all Gaelic for demon. Nerd. Yeah, Uncle Jay enjoyed teaching you the old language. Anyway, from that point on, it was head under the blankets, monsters in the closet. You stopped talking to the old man and thought he wanted to hurt you. You're creeping me out now. Yeah, well, it got worse. The treasure you spoke of that was safe, that was built into the foundation. Uncle Jay did some checking into the background of the funeral guy. Not a good man. 5th generation asshat businessman and a convicted conman to boot. He was known for slipping valuables into the safe from the deceased. His partner, incidentally, was the one who set up a room in the attic and got the pool table up there. Notified the authorities when he learned of it. Dad, why did Uncle Jay buy this place? Dirt cheap real estate, boy. Our Uncle Jay never believed the stuff till after we moved in, and the activity increased. Anyway, after things started happening, Uncle Jay went into the basement where we stashed a trunk of odds and ends he found in the house. And in the trunk was a set of old ledgers where the last entry in it was, I'm done. The rat bastard turned me in. Family legacy gone to shit. May the devil take him and everyone comes to this house after us. That night, according to Uncle Jay, both the director and the partner vanished. House went up to some nephew who renovated it. Sat on the market for a while and Aunt and Uncle snapped it up cheap. When Aunt G's friend heard it was a funeral home, she was all gung-ho for having those communications parties and bringing in those Miss Chloe psychics. Got to the point where Uncle Jay had a priest come bless the house. Things quieted down for a while. Then they broke in. The doors and thresholds were damaged. The blessing was vacated and it came back seething mad. Go on. You mean you never wondered why we had your grandmother get you from school instead of coming home? Why we worked all those weekends and you stayed at your grandparents'? Wasn't till you were older where it just wasn't possible to have your grandparents watch you after school. That's when you really started to notice things. No, Dad, never worked it out. Just thought you were saving money and that. What did it look like to you? To me, it was shrouded, had 3 eyes, hands like hawk talons. Big, 3 eyes, long horns pointing forward and clawed hands. Darker than the dark around it. After that night in the storm, we were leaving come hell or high water. Got lucky, got the cash for the payments, and got out. Your mom had a priest bless the house. Pa carved and buried the 4 stones. You know, I'd see that damn bull shadow in the trees outside our property sometimes. The first night we saw it together, then it took Uncle Jay. You know that, right? I believe it took him from us. Saw it again the night you moved out. Over the nights leading up to your mom passing. The day we put the dog down. And now I see it like it wants me to know it was waiting for me. My dad's meds kicked in, and it was lights out on the Painkiller Express. Epilogue Part 2. Conversation with my cousin. September 2010. The last time I saw my extended family was at my father's memorial, or if you will, an Irish funeral. A send-off of booze, food, stories, and accomplishments of the deceased. Part memorial, part comedy roast. There you have it. It's there I reconnect with my cousins. Let's jump forward several months. March 2011. Have you ever felt like your past was on collision course with your present? And while you're waiting for a thunderous boom as the two meet, instead, it's a simple electronic ringing of a cell phone that heralds the reunion. Phone rings. I see the contact info. Hello? Hey, it's Cousin One. Listen, I wanted to ask you something, but it wasn't right last time we all met. Sure, what's up? So my brother and I inherited the old place you used to live at. Yeesh, you had weird things happen, and now you want to know if I've ever experienced anything like it while I was living there. Dude, yeah. Yes, everything from noises to smells, banging doors, cabinets opening and closing, toys turning on, lights flickering, temperature differences. My dad and I even saw it once. Really? Yes, there's something dark there. Now before I go any further, let me get some paper. Okay, now, are you aware of the house's history? I'm going to put you on speakerphone so my brother can join in. How's it going? Not bad. So you guys know the house was a funeral home? No? Yeah, Dad told me. Owned by a real crook, stole from the deceased. It's at this point I tell them everything I know about the house's past. Stunned silence. Cousin One. Everyone said we shouldn't live here, just sell it. But we thought it would be good to keep in the family. I've got the first floor, brother's got the second. My girlfriend and our kid were with me on the second. Cousin Two, if you got your kid in the back most bedroom, that used to be my room. And if I were you, I would change it. That closet. It uses that closet. It tormented me for years with that damn closet. Yeah, we found it open several mornings in a row. And sometimes at night, I can hear my kid talking. I asked him this morning who he talks to, and he said, the old man that lives in the closet. We switched rooms, but it's still opening, and it's like being watched all the time. My father told me I saw an old man when I was a kid. He was trying to get me to go to the basement. Yeah, no, we don't keep anything in the basement. Not after the movers got hurt. What happened? We hired some guys to move everything out of the attic and basement. Attic was fine, but guys had a hell of a time in the basement. One guy fell down the stairs. One guy, trying to get that safe move, had it fall on its leg. The crew quit over the basement, so we hired another crew. Dude, one guy lost 2 fingers trying to move that safe. He swears something bit them off. It's the only thing remaining in the basement. Some friends and family wanted some of the things in the house. Anyone that took anything returned it within a week. Said it made the house feel creepy. Has anyone seen it? Seen what? I'll explain the entity as I remembered it. No way! Yes. Look, it seems to build and build, then does something really frightening. Then takes time to savor the chaos it's created. Then it starts up again. Honestly, don't screw around with it. It can seriously screw with you. Like, you guys ever got into stupid fights? Get so angry for no reason? If so, that's what this thing feeds off of. Yes, we do. How do we stop it? I don't think you can. But Dad said Uncle Jay had some luck with an Irish priest, but it was always short-lived. It seemed to be bound to the house and to the items in the house. When we moved, we left a bunch of stuff just to make sure. We'll try that. Okay. Good luck, guys. Epilogue Part 3. Conversations with my cousins. November 2011. Cousin One calls me and tells me that they've moved out and why. I'm obviously on speakerphone. Here's how the conversation goes. Man, we really screwed up. We had to move. We're going to put that place up and never look back. What happened? My brother had a priest from his church visit and bless each room in the house, upstairs and downstairs. They said that they would need to do this a few times. After about a month, the house grew calm, and we thought that it was over. It really was like a new place. I take it something changed? Yeah, man, I really screwed up. After our Halloween party. See, my brother and I threw a party. Drinking was involved. We had gotten a good buzz, and he had been talking about the odd stuff going on. And well, we thought it was finally gone. Dormant is more likely. You're right. It was really dumb to think it's gone. Anyway, one of our guests, this was a guy we let in on the weird things going on, and right from the start, he wanted to try the Ouija board. We told him no constantly, but he would always bring it up. Goes to his car and brings out a Ouija board and says, let's find out. Cousin One, please tell me you didn't use that thing. Not in that house. I was buzzed. My brother had left the party, but 3 others stayed, and somehow we ended up sitting around this board. Lights off, candles burning, asking questions and drinking. So using the board, we asked, is there anyone who will speak with us? No. No one will speak with us? Yes. What is your name? No response. Were you once alive? No. What are you? We are. What are you doing here tonight? Waiting. What are you waiting for? Blood. At that, a glass on the table tipped over and shattered. We jumped up and a few of the candles went out. We continued. Did you do that? Yes. Are you going to show us more? No. Are you trying to harm us? No response. What do you want? Kill. Have you ever killed before? Yes. What did people do to you? Called. When were you called? 1908. Why were you called? Revenge. Revenge on who? Thief. Doors began banging in the house. The sound woke me up. My girlfriend and I swapped bedrooms with our kid. The room felt uncomfortable and cold. I know I heard something in the closet. We heard the banging, but we continued. Is that you again? We are here. When did you come to this house? 1925. Why stay in this house? Sorrow. The mourners woke you? Hunger. Will you ever leave? Never. What if we call the priest again? No response. What if we have a psychic come in? Mad. What if we force you to leave? We are here. The table felt like it lifted, so everyone stood up from the table. Someone hit the lights and they came on. We could see blood and glass on the planchette. We all had cuts from the glass on our fingers. Just then, the doors stopped slamming. The planchette on the board, untouched by anyone, covered in our blood, moves to goodbye. That's when it all came on, growling and banging from the door in the living room, their heads down to the basement. The light seemed to dim and it looked like shadows were crawling out and wiggling from under the door. We started shouting. Cousin 2. I thought you were pulling our chain a bit, but I turned on all the lights on the second floor. I could and tried to rush downstairs, but I had to stop. Stuff was coming out of the door to the basement and was starting to move up the stairs. It was ice cold if you stepped on it. I raced back upstairs and got my girlfriend. It had started to come out from under our bedroom closet like a black fog. We ran and got our kid, turned to leave, and that's when we saw it, standing in the kitchen. My kid said, "Look, it's the old man." But what was in the kitchen wasn't a man. It was a huge, big head, long arms ending in clawed hands, and just as black as I've ever seen. I got my keys and ran. We ran outside, got in the car, and we were gone. Cousin 1. Then it appeared downstairs. My friends bolted as it hurled the planchette at us. We ran from the house. What I remember next was that both outside doors slamming shut at the same time. Me. So everyone's unharmed? Yes. Did it ever follow you after you left? No, not when we moved. Or when I moved out on my own. Yeah, we're done with it. Good call. Take nothing from the house that came with it. That's all we did. The house was sold to a flipper a few months later. My research shows they had to sit on the house and ended up losing it to the bank. It was then sold to the current owner. Present day. My initial contact. I reached out via snail mail to the current owners of the house. Hello. This will likely be the most bizarre note you'll ever receive. When I was a kid, I grew up on the second floor of this house. I've included a printout of the layout of the second floor. The house was once a funeral home, and I'm writing because I've been sharing my experiences with strangers, and it's really awakened my sense of responsibility about this house. I'll be blunt. This house has a dark entity about it. I know this will sound crazy, but I've seen it. I lived in terror of it for years. I was terrorized by it, physically assaulted, and I believe it went as far to oppress my family. The basement is unnerving. Have any children started to have an imaginary friend? The old man? Here's an email address where you can respond if you want. Please forgive the lack of identification or return address, but I've learned to be wary of anything physically coming from the house. A few days later, the email address gets a hit. Current owners. You're not crazy. We've seen it too. Your letter arrived, and I admit my partner and I were very skeptical. but you captured the layout of the upper floor perfectly. It's odd that we actually took comfort from knowing we're not going crazy. We moved in about 8 or 9 months ago. The house was undervalued for its size, so we thought we got a good deal. Being non-essential workers, we're both quarantined at home and it feels like something is drawing on the fear and uncertainty. My partner believes she has a gift, and the night after we closed on the house, she couldn't sleep. She said we made a mistake and that something was waiting for us in the new house. I was always skeptical about the paranormal, but lately, I'm thinking there's more to this world. We moved in. On the first day, the home stunk of rotten eggs, and it would go away and return. When not smelling like eggs, it was like compost. It was so strange. Our cat will hiss and growl in the middle of the night, and we'll find her gaze locked on the door to the basement, or some random corner. We hear footsteps on the second floor, but no one is renting the apartment. We called the police once convinced someone was up there. They heard the steps and started an investigation. The doors and windows were locked. No one was up there. One day, we saw a figure a good 7 foot taking up the whole window frame of what was your bedroom window as I was gardening. It appeared to be watching us. My partner tried to get a picture of it on her phone, but the file was corrupted. You mentioned an old man, and I had a long pause right there. My partner and I don't have any, but we do have a nephew. He's been going on about the old man that talks to him in his playroom. The room is the one directly under your bedroom. My partner has studied Reiki and is trying to push positive energy into the home to force out the negative, but so far has had no luck. I absolutely love this old hotel, and any chance I get to head to it, but the interesting thing about this hotel is it's haunted. The most active room of the hotel is room 314. It's referred to as the Princess Room, as this is the room that the hotel's founder's wife, Carolyn, would stay in. Her original canopy bed is in this room. That being said, you don't need to stay in that room to experience activity. My wife and I stayed in the hotel for our 15th anniversary last year, and the story we got to take away is the one I'm about to share. We stayed in one of the hotel's corner vista rooms. Phenomenal views, but they're located at the end of the long hallways. My wife and I go to dinner in the main dining hall, and they set up a table for Carolyn with the original china and silverware every night. I took a photo of the table and went and had dinner. As we finish and leave, my wife notices the knife and fork are on the plate. We mentioned it to the hostess, who immediately tells the manager next to her that she did see the silverware move. My dumbass forgot to get a picture of the silverware position post-dinner. After going to the speakeasy club for a few drinks, we start to return to our room. But in the hallway halfway down the floor is a huge white mist. Its form becomes somewhat more human-like as I fumble for and drop my phone. It tilts what would be its head to us and then vanishes into the room. The room is 314. We go to the main desk to speak with one of the people, and they call the manager. The manager listens, writes a few things down, and says we're the third party that evening to report seeing Carolyn in the hall. The hotel has a small book of all the images of Carolyn that have been captured over the years, and you can request to view it during your visit. There have never been malevolent reports of encounters with her, but she has been seen many times, and the waitlist to get this room is very long. I'll start off with explaining my family and living situation. My wife and I have 3 children, her daughter who's 7, my son who's 9, and her son who's 10. We don't have any children together. My wife and I share a bedroom. Her daughter has her own room, and our boys share a room with a bunk bed. Her son sleeps on the bottom bunk, and my son sleeps on the top bunk. They are all 3 with us full time, and visit their other parents every other weekend. My son has always had some behavioural issues that stemmed from us living with my parents for some time, and the things they allowed him to get away with when they were watching him. I feel as if I'm also to blame for some of the issues, because I'm not a super loving, affectionate person, and I believe that every child needs that from their parents. When my wife and I first started dating, my son got along great with her two children, aside from some jealousy and selfishness traits that come from being an only child. But as the relationship progressed, the two boys started butting heads a bit more. For the past few weeks, my son has been calling my stepson an idiot multiple times a day. He gets in trouble for doing this, and when asked why he chose to call names, he says he doesn't know and tears up like he's confused. He's also been staring and glaring at my wife with a blank expression that makes her feel extremely uncomfortable. And he's also lunged at her a few times in a threatening manner. My son has never done these things before, and it just seemed like it started to happen out of nowhere. We have him in counselling and are working to resolve these issues. Before I get into explaining the events that we experienced that last night, I want to explain the one previous experience we had in our bedroom. My wife and I were laying in bed one night. I was asleep and she was awake. She started nudging me, which woke me up, and told me that she was seeing a shadow figure in the corner of our bedroom. I looked and didn't see it at first, but as my eyes adjusted to the darkness, I could see it as well. It was a dark, translucent figure that stood maybe 5.5 to 6 feet tall, and it was just standing in the corner of our bedroom. We stared at it for maybe 2 or 3 minutes, and it started to fade away until it disappeared completely. Neither of us felt threatened or unsafe, but we were definitely creeped out. That was about 2 years ago, and we haven't had anything else happen until last night. Fast forward to last night. We were playing a video game online, Call of Duty, with my sister, their boyfriend, and a couple of their friends. It was around 7:30, and I started to feel dizzy and nauseous, so I told her I was going to head to bed. She woke me up around 9:30 to smoke a cigarette with her, but I started to feel dizzy and nauseous again, so I headed back to bed. I laid there for a while, unable to sleep, and started to get cold chills and goosebumps, and had an uneasy feeling. My wife came to bed around 11 o'clock and fell asleep pretty quickly, but I was still unable to sleep. I laid in bed for what I assume was about half an hour and started to hear thumping and tapping around our house. Some noises were in our bedroom, some sounded like they came from our kitchen, and some from the kids' bedrooms, etc. I then heard what sounded like one of our kids walk down the hallway and into the hallway bathroom and slam the door. I thought that was odd because none of our kids slam doors, and they usually don't wake up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom. I started to hear light talking, whispering almost, and then I heard a female voice say, "My name? Do you want to go do that thing?" I thought it was my wife asking me to go smoke, so I attempted to roll over and ask her why, but I was unable to move or talk. I started to think that I was experiencing sleep paralysis, which I've never had before, but I knew that I was definitely awake. I thought about some things I've read online and other places about commanding spirit entities to leave my home, leave me alone, etc. I was finally able to say, "Leave me alone," and when I did, I saw a light flash in our bedroom window and saw something drop from about shoulder height onto the floor, which made a loud thump sound. It reminded me of someone dropping a cell phone or TV remote. I started to freak out, but was finally able to move, so I shook my wife's arm and woke her up. I had to turn on her phone light and nothing was there. I got up and turned on our bedroom light to start looking for whatever was dropped, and once again, nothing was there. I explained what happened to my wife, and she was obviously scared at this point. We laid in bed for a few minutes and started to hear thumping noises coming from the boys' room where all 3 of our children were sleeping. So I got up, turned their light on and checked on them, but they were all asleep. I laid back in bed and a few minutes later, we heard something fall in the boys' bedroom again. I got up, turned the lights back on and saw that a book had fallen off the top bunk onto the floor. But the book was open, face down on the floor. Think of it as an A with the spine facing up and the 4 edges of the book touching the floor. The book were about 2 feet away from his feet at the foot of his bed, so I didn't think he would have been able to knock either of them off. Her 2 children woke up when I was about to leave the room and followed me to our bedroom, so we let them sleep on the floor. I must have fallen back asleep, but a few minutes later, I awoke to my wife hyperventilating, and she said that she had looked to the same corner of our room and saw the figure again. But this time, it was standing over her 2 children in the middle of the room. I looked, but couldn't see it, and she said it had vanished again. We heard a few more thumps and thuds throughout the night, but nothing else happened that I would consider extreme. My wife seems to think something may have attached to or possessed my son, taking his behaviour into account, and I'm scared for the safety of my son and my family in general. Our neighbour is the pastor of our local church, and I'm going to speak with him after work tonight to see if he's willing to come bless our home and see what his thoughts are. But at this time, we're scared to go back to our home because of what happened last night. To give some background to working on G-Wing or Golf Wing, G-Wing used to house death row inmates as they await their executions in the prison. It's set up similarly to other wings in the prison, except a little different. The wing is divided between 3 floors and 6 rows of 17 cells each. We no longer house the death row on the wing, and the first floor is the only floor with inmates housed in the cells. These inmates are open population inmates placed in disciplinary confinement. The second floor contains 5 supermax cells. The third cell down on the right side row actually held Ted Bundy and is a supermax cell. The rest of the cells on the second floor are empty and still have TV stands. The third floor is empty as well, with regular cells. Our quarterdeck is a small 15 by 20-ish on the second floor, where we have a desk set up and a few chairs. Bathroom and break room with a fridge and microwave. The quarterdeck is where the officers chill while in between rounds and activities. The staircase that goes to all 3 floors is directly to the right of the quarterdeck, next to the front door of the wing. The wing is also generally dark, and the emptiness of the wing, keep in mind this wing is meant to hold over 100 inmates, and only usually holds 30-ish inmates on the first floor, gave the wing a dead, silent, foreboding feeling. Now that you understand the way the ex-death row wing is set up, I can go ahead with the stories. When I first started working the prison, I was told by many COs that G-Wing is the easiest wing to work, due to you only having to walk the 2 rows on the first floor, making your rounds quicker and easier. However, the trade-off is that the wing is fucking creepy, with long, dark, empty rows, flickering lights, out-of-place noises, footsteps, doors opening on their own. This wing had it all, but everyone picked it because, after all, it's the easiest wing to work. I finally worked G-Wing for the first time about a month ago, and still remember the first time I've ever dealt with something just so unexplainable. I entered the wing at around 6-ish PM and proceeded to do my first rounds, basically just making sure all the gates were locked, showers, closets, pipe chasers, everything. After doing my round and everything was locked, and all my inmates were good, me and the other COs started shooting the shit. Around 9 PM, the first weird thing happened that made us all question, but not really freak out. We had the second floor pipe chase open to the quarterdeck, our smoke spot, and I and another unarmed CO were burning up when we heard loud clangs above us on the third floor catwalk. Keep in mind that the only way for someone to go on the third floor catwalk in the pipe chase would be to have the house keys to unlock that pipe chase, which were on my hip. We brushed it off as a rat and kept smoking and continued the shift. I'm unsure of the exact time this happened, but it was after 2 AM and before 5 AM. Me and the other 2 COs were on the quarterdeck talking when we were cut off by a long and loud creaking noise from the third floor. We all agreed that it sounded like the row gate being opened on the third, so we grabbed our flashlights and ran up the stairs, thinking that somehow an inmate from the first floor escaped and made it to the third floor without us noticing. All of which was very improbable, but it was the only logical thing we could come up with. We arrived on the third floor and immediately began checking the row gates, which were locked, and so were all the closets and cell doors, but we know we heard it. All 3 of us did, and we're certain it was a door or gate swinging open. We went back down to the quarterdeck and quietly talked the rest of the night. My second experience actually happened recently when I was assigned to G-Wing again, and genuinely shook me worse than the last experience. We were hanging out on the quarterdeck when I decided to fuck with Bundy. I grabbed my flashlight and walked down the side 2 row with the supermax cells, until I came up to the third cell. The lights were already on in all the cells. I looked inside the cell just checking it out and building up my confidence before yelling, "Ted Bundy, you a bitch!" Right as the last word left my mouth, the cell light turned off and turned back on, and I felt like I was freezing. I quickly ran back to the quarterdeck and told the others what happened, and I could tell they were each trying to figure out whether or not to believe me. Needless to say, I didn't mess with Bundy anymore on that wing. Those are my two personal stories, but any CO that has worked that wing can tell you a thing or two. Even the inmates that are housed on the wing are terrified and always silent. I remember asking them why they're so quiet, to which one of them has been in G for a while stated, "Because, sir, the police aren't the only ones we see walking down the row." And he left it at that. Another inmate who used to be on death row and housed in Ted Bundy's old cell was hearing Ted in the cell along with other voices and tried telling the wing sergeant that he needed to be pulled out. The wing sergeant wouldn't pull him, so the inmates cut up his arms and passed out from how much blood he lost and almost died. Just so he wouldn't be in that specific cell. Other COs and myself also talk about feeling a sense of dread when walking down the empty rows, which I've also felt, and seen shadows moved from the peripheral view. When I was 13 years old, I went down with my mother and stepfather to Tennessee to visit family members on my stepdad's side of the family. That's where I met my cousin TJ. We became fast friends and I stayed over at his house for a few nights. Then it was time to go to Grandma's house for a night. TJ wanted to come and was invited. TJ and I slept in one room and my parents were in the next room. He and I stayed up late talking and being goofy kids. At some point I fell asleep. I was laying flat on my stomach in the bed when I felt my legs being grabbed and shook. Half asleep, I said, "TJ, stop." It happened again. I yelled and half turned around. It wasn't TJ. The best way I could describe it was a boy with a shirt of fire. It looked like a fire, but it wasn't flickering or moving. He smiled at me and ran to the other bed next to mine, where TJ was supposed to be sleeping. It ducked and dissipated into nothing. Seconds later, TJ walked into the room. He just came from the bathroom. He asked me what was up. I said nothing. I must have looked like I just saw a ghost. I ran to the room my parents were in and raised my hand to knock on the door, but then thought for a second, what the hell was I going to tell them? So I just went back to the room and laid down. I didn't say anything to anyone. I think the only reason I got any sleep is because TJ was in the next bed to me, so I didn't feel alone, but I didn't sleep easy. Years later, I did talk about it to my stepfather. He said that Grandma had a nephew that died in a fire. I'm getting goosebumps just writing this, and when I think of this too much, I still get goosebumps. Over the years, I asked myself, was it just a dream? But if so, why did it happen when TJ woke up? I'm in the middle of the night to use the bathroom, and what's the chances that this grandma I don't know at all had a nephew that died in a fire? I don't know what to believe, but nothing like this has ever happened again. I don't hear a lot of people that have had such a ghost experience. I can remember his face and everything. For years, I never liked sleeping on my stomach with my legs out of the blanket because of this. Either I had one hell of a dream, or this really happened.